All right, hello, I am Mr. Rogers.
And I'm Mrs. Froman.
And these are the video notes for section 3-2 on fish. And we are actually going to look at a couple different types of fish. So now we're all the same phylum of chordates, and then we're kind of going into different groups of animals here. So our first stop in the vertebrate world is going to be fish. And some basic facts about our fish are they are ectothermic. That means they depend on that environment for their body heat. Yep. They have bilateral symmetry. You can divide them in half. Fish, they live in water. Duh. All right. They have fins for movement, scales for protection. Most have scales, we should say, all of them. Yeah. Have gills to obtain oxygen. They have that specialized organs now. And these are really some of the first vertebrates on Earth were fish. And speaking of like the total number of animals that are vertebrates, almost half of them fall into that fish category. So
that's a lot of fish.
There's a pretty diverse population there, yeah.
So moving and eating, they have fins that help them move around, and it's a thin membrane stretched across their bony supports. So kind of like if you had finger bones and stuff in between there. They have streamlined bodies, so they help them move easily through the water. Some are carnivores, some are herbivores, and some are omnivores. You can see the carnivore up there with the big teeth, barracuda. Their bodies are adapted to their feeding style. So that picture right there in the middle, the kind of blue and yellow, yeah, that one. That's a parrotfish, and if you look real close, it kind of looks like it has a beak. And it's adapted to eat coral, so it crunches the coral and gets the polyps out of there. So they're all specially adapted to.
Whereas our barracuda here, this guy,
he's definitely adapted.
Grab onto a fish and grab him and not let him go.
And then that little guy down there has a teeny tiny little mouth, probably to get little algae out of crevices.
Who, Dory?
Like
Dory has that?
Yes, Dory.
All right, so reproduction here, guys. So as far as how they reproduce, they're in water, so they have external fertilization, so it happens outside. That means the eggs and sperm are going to meet outside in the water. Some do have internal fertilization and development, but a lot of times it's on the outside. But a few species do kind of pen.
Like guppies.
Guppies, they have them in their mouth there.
Yeah.
And the young hatch as tiny fish. So that metamorphosis before, they don't have that like insects did. They kind of look like adults when they come out.
So how do they breathe underwater? Well, they have gills. So the reason fish are always opening their mouth all the time is because they're gulping that water in, and then it flows over their gills. And the gills are full of tiny little blood vessels, and those are actually picking up the oxygen from the water that's flowing over the gills. So the oxygen moves from the water into the blood, while the carbon dioxide moves from the blood into the water. And this is just a case of diffusion because the concentration is
from high to low.
It's going from high to low concentration.
So yes, there is oxygen molecules dissolved in water. That's why we get that to work there, yeah. So the swim bladder, another kind of interesting feature is a swim bladder. It's an internal sac filled with oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. Sometimes, depending on the fish, it could also be filled with like oil too. It might be too. What it does with that swim bladder is it can change the buoyant force. They might fill it with air, deflating it, so it helps it just rise and fall. In the it's an adaptation to kind of swimming. If you want to change its buoyancy. It can sink higher or lower in the water. Depending if they inflate it more, they can rise. When they deflate it, they're going to sink. It's kind of that cool adaptation that fish have, and that we actually have taken in technology. Like submarines have it, the ballast tanks. That's how they go up and down in the water, kind of copying off of the.
Then we have our jawless fish. These are the earliest vertebrates. They don't have any scales. They don't have any jaws. They have a cartilage skeleton. Their fins are not even in pairs, if they even have any. Sometimes they'll just have one along their back.
They're very snake-like almost, yeah.
Their mouths are made for scraping, stabbing, and sucking, so they just like latch onto something and scrape it. The hagfish, which is that guy at the top, he eats decaying things at the bottom of the ocean, so he just rips into the flesh. And then the lamprey, you can see that guy. He looks like he has a big suction cup. He latches onto other animals and sucks their blood.
So parasites. These guys are kind of, I hate to say the low life.
Not exactly the desirables of the fish world.
All right, so the next type, guys, again, kind of in terms of complexity, too, again, evolutionary on the steps there. The next are the cartilaginous or cartilaginous fish. And so their skeletons, they have skeletons, but it's not even made of bone like we do. They're made of cartilage, which is more of that flexible tissue that's like in your ear. And same with the jawless fish we had before. They have jaws. They have pairs of fins. They're covered with rough tooth-like scales. So they're
Yeah.
it's kind of leathery, but if you
So-
go against it, you can definitely
Yeah,
feel
if
it
you
as you
look at
rub
that
it. You can kind of see.
microscope image. Yeah,
zoom in, yeah.
it's- If you, they look smooth, but they're kind of rough, like
Yeah.
sandpaper.
So they're all carnivores. Now, and what's kind of different about them, as far as in some ways, it's oftentimes a disadvantage. They can't pump water over their gills. They can't
Yeah.
swallow water.
That's why you don't see sharks going.
That's right. They got to keep swimming to keep that water flow over their gills so they can keep breathing. So they can't stop very long. They got to keep moving. And this includes sharks, rays, and skates. So they got to keep swimming all the time to keep that water moving over their body,
Right.
which can be a disadvantage. You can't sit still, especially as a predator. You want that ability.
Then we have the bony fish, and their skeletons are made of bone, and their body's covered with scales, and they have those gill covers to cover up their gills. 95% of all fish species are the bony fish, so that's the one we're most familiar with. But there's a huge variety in the fish. I mean, sizes, colors,
Yep.
shapes, lots of different fish out there.
Locations out there, yeah, habitat, they're everywhere. All right, so those are our three kind of major type of fish we're going to look at today. We thank you guys for watching, and we will see you along the way.
Bye.